Look at this mirror. It's barely 5 inches wide, smaller than your phone screen. Painted in 1434, nearly 600 years ago, by a man who had never seen a photograph. Now look closer. There are 10 scenes from the Passion of Christ painted around its frame, each one smaller than your fingernail. In the center, the reflection shows 2 figures standing where you are standing now. And above the mirror, in elegant Latin script, the artist wrote something no painter had ever written before. Jan van Eyck was here. Think about that for a second. A 15th century painter signed his work like a modern graffiti artist. But he didn't just sign it. He placed his signature exactly where your eye would land after tracing the reflection back to its source. And once you see the signature, you start seeing everything else. The single candle burning in broad daylight, the cherry tree in full fruit outside a winter window, the dog that some art historians believe is not a dog at all, the woman who may or may not be pregnant, the man who may or may not be alive. The Arnolfini portrait has been called a wedding certificate, a memorial to a dead wife, a legal contract, a ghost story. And yet, what most people miss, what almost everyone misses, is that this painting was not made for us. It was made as evidence. Every object in this room was placed there deliberately, like evidence in a trial. And if you know how to read it, the painting tells you exactly what it's proving. The mirror is the key. Everything in the Arnolfini portrait orbits around it. Jan van Eyck did something unprecedented here. Before him, mirrors in paintings were flat, static, decorative. Van Eyck turned the mirror into a second painting inside the first. He bent the laws of optics to show you what the couple sees, and what cannot be seen from where you stand. The convex surface reflects the entire room, the backs of Giovanni Arnolfini and his wife, the bed, the window, and 2 figures standing in the doorway. One of those figures is wearing a red turban. Jan van Eyck painted himself wearing a red turban in at least 3 other works. Art historians are almost certain that one of the figures in the mirror is Van Eyck himself, standing where you, the viewer, are now standing, watching the scene unfold. He is both painter and witness, and that changes everything about how we read this painting. When you stand in front of the Arnolfini portrait at the National Gallery in London, you are not looking at a snapshot of a private moment. You are standing exactly where the painter stood. The couple is looking at you. The mirror confirms you are in the room. Now let's look at the couple themselves. Because once you understand the mirror, every gesture reads differently. Giovanni Arnolfini holds his wife's hand in his left. With his right hand, he is raised, not in greeting, not in blessing. This is the gesture of an oath. In the 15th century, a raised hand meant exactly one thing: I swear. His shoes are off. In the medieval period, removing your shoes meant you were standing on holy ground, or entering a sacred contract, or both. The single candle in the chandelier burns in broad daylight. It represents the presence of God, the all-seeing witness to an oath. But only one candle. The other sockets are empty. Some scholars see a funeral reference here. In Flemish tradition, a single lit candle was carried before a coffin. And then there is the woman. Her name was likely Giovanna Cenami. Her dress is not maternity wear. This was the fashion of the Burgundian court, but she is posed in a way that deliberately evokes fertility. The green of her gown, the way she holds the fabric near her stomach. She is not pregnant. She is performing the promise of it. Here is the theory that has divided art historians for decades. This painting is a legal document, a visual marriage contract signed by the artist himself as witness. The evidence is all there. Jan van Eyck's signature above the mirror, Johannes de Eyck fuit hic, is not the standard made by that painters used. It means was here. It is witness testimony, not a maker's mark. The mirror proves the painter was present. The raised hand proves an oath was sworn. The candle proves God was watching. The shoes prove the ground was sacred. And yet, there is another theory, a darker one. Some art historians believe the woman in this painting was already dead when Van Eyck painted her. Look at her face again. Is she looking at her husband or through him? Her expression is not the serene gaze of a bride. It is distant, unmoored, the kind of stillness that does not come from composure. Giovanni Arnolfini commissioned this painting in 1434. We know from records that his first wife, Costanza Trenta, died in 1433, the year before. If the woman in the portrait is Costanza, then this is not a wedding portrait. It is a memorial. The evidence cuts both ways. The cherry tree outside the window is in full fruit, but in Bruges, in winter, cherry trees are bare. Is it a symbol of paradise? The extinguished candle sockets, the shoes removed, the dog at her feet. Dogs in Flemish art often represented fidelity, but also accompanied effigies on tombs. We will probably never know which theory is correct. But here is what we do know, and this is where the science becomes more extraordinary than any ghost story. Jan van Eyck painted the Arnolfini portrait using a technique that most of his contemporaries could not replicate. He built up translucent layers of oil paint, sometimes as many as 30 layers, over a white ground, each layer thinner than a human hair. The result is something called optical depth. Light penetrates the layers, bounces off the white ground beneath, and travels back through the paint. Your eye perceives depth that is not physically there. The technique creates the illusion of 3 dimensions on a flat panel. Van Eyck did not invent oil painting despite the persistent myth, but he refined it to a level that, frankly, no one has matched since. The fur on Arnolfini's coat, the individual hairs on the dog, the reflection in each bead of the chandelier. These are not brush strokes, they are chemical reactions frozen in time. Now let's talk about the mirror. How did Van Eyck paint a convex reflection with photographic accuracy in 1434? The answer may be the same one we explored with Vermeer, a camera obscura. A convex mirror is, in essence, a wide-angle lens. If Van Eyck used one to study how light bends across a curved surface, he could have reverse-engineered the reflection by observing his own studio. The National Gallery in London has confirmed through infrared reflectography that Van Eyck made adjustments to the mirror's reflection multiple times during the painting process. He was not copying what he saw in a single sitting. He was studying it, measuring it, and then rebuilding it from understanding. This is not mysticism, this is method. And yet, when we strip away the science, the theories, the legal documents, and the memorials, something else remains. A man stood in a room in Bruges in 1434 and tried to make evidence of something. A marriage, a death, a presence. We do not know which, but we know he wanted it to last. He signed his name where no one could miss it. He painted his own reflection into the scene so that no one could deny he was there. He used every tool he had, optics, chemistry, and an almost insane attention to detail, to make sure that 600 years later, someone would still be looking. And here you are, looking. That is not just a painting. That is a message in a bottle thrown across 6 centuries, and we are still decoding it. The mirror reflects 2 figures entering the room. One of them is wearing a red turban. He is holding something in his hand, a brush perhaps, or a pen. He is still watching. he is still saying, I was here. Hit subscribe. Next week, another painting that hides a story most people walk right past. Because every masterpiece has a secret, and we're going to find